Battle+Invincibility+decisive killing+Dominance+Tang Dynasty, Li Xian's soul penetrated into the late Sui and early Tang dynasties. At the time when the Tang dynasty began sweeping various feudal lords and unifying the world. As a commoner, he was tragically rejected from marriage. In times of adversity, one gains a unique golden finger. Resolutely enlisted in the army, step by step becoming the god of war of the Tang dynasty. Marquises and generals are conferred titles, and officials hold extremely high positions. Yesterday you were indifferent to me, tomorrow I will make you unable to rise up. When I saw the founding emperor of the Tang dynasty, I realized that I had an intricate relationship with the Li family of the imperial family. Chapter 1. Refusal to marriage. Combat system. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What if you are young and talented, full of knowledge? I, Wu Mayan, won't marry you, a weak and powerless scholar. Do you want to marry me? Unless on the day you become a marquis and pay homage. However, people like you will never have that day. You're living such a cowardly and incompetent life, why don't you just bump yourself to death? Li Xian lay on the couch, constantly thinking about the words of being rejected by Wu Mayan. Wu Mayan's words were like a sharp knife, piercing Li Xian's heart directly. Remembering Wu Mayan's refusal to marry again, Li Xian's face would still turn pale and he would clench his hands into fists. For the late Sui and early Tang dynasties, which were dominated by aristocratic families, commoners like Li Xian had a delusional desire to marry a woman with a slightly better family background. How could one possibly be granted the title of marquis or prime minister as a seemingly powerless scholar without any power or authority? A handsome man, can't he even marry a wife? Li Xian stood up and muttered to himself. No. I can't continue to mess around aimlessly. Starting from today, I, Li Xian, will strive to become stronger. However, in this dynasty with strict social hierarchy, how can one obtain channels for advancement? Thinking of this, Li Xian's head seemed to have been poured down by a basin of water, extinguishing his newly surging ambition. Sigh. He couldn't help but sigh. Both helpless and unwilling. Ding, detected system activation conditions met. System generation in progress. Congratulations to the host, the battle upgrade system has been successfully activated system. The golden finger of the traveler has finally arrived. That's right, Li Xian is a traveler. Before traveling, my girlfriend also ran away due to my poor performance. Unexpectedly, even in this era, it is still a failed life. Li Xian came from the soul of the 21st century 6 months ago. What depressed him was that the life of Li Xian, whom he had taken away, was even more unbearable. Since childhood, I have lost my parents and grew up with my grandfather in a small town in Jiangzhou. Grandpa relied on setting up a stall and frugally hired a private school teacher for Li Xian. I originally thought that Li Xian could achieve academic success, but the reality is cruel. Without referrals from prestigious families, even if he is talented and knowledgeable, he cannot find a way to enter the officialdom. His grandfather is good friends with Grandpa Wu Mayan and also shows kindness to Grandpa Wu Mayan. Grandpa Wu Mayan is a grateful person who arranged for Li Xian to marry his granddaughter as a child. But 2 years ago, Grandpa Wu Mayan passed away, and the relationship between the two families plummeted. The Wu family never acknowledged this marriage, and Wu Mayan looked down upon Li Xian who had achieved nothing. Martial Arts Panel Generation. The sound of the system continues. Host can obtain corresponding attribute values based on combat experience to upgrade martial arts. Li Xian naturally has some understanding of martial arts. This is different from ordinary martial arts. Cultivating martial arts to the extreme, it will be an invincible existence. The main martial arts practiced by Su are quenching the body 9 times, condensing the pulse 9 times, gathering chi 9 times, transforming the mortal 9 times, acquired 9 times, and innate 9 times. The mechanical sound of the system came again. If the host can break through the innate ninefold, it will be able to unite heaven and humanity. Li Xian was overjoyed. The dynasty he lived in was an era that revered military force and military achievements. Many people have gained fame through military force, achieved military achievements, and were granted titles such as marquises and generals. If you practice martial arts on your own, it would be perfect for this dynasty that values martial arts. However, this martial art requires obtaining experience points through battles to cultivate and upgrade. The problem is that one has no strength to bind oneself. Even if there is a chance to go to the battlefield, it is simply a dead end. By the way, usually in this situation, the system will definitely have a beginner gift package to transform its host. System, where is my beginner gift package? Li Xian asked in his heart. This system does not have a beginner gift package. Li Xian frowned. But the host can participate in a beginner draw soon. A holographic projection lottery wheel that only he could see appeared in front of Li Xian. The turntable is marked with Super Force Mind Technique, Super Invincible Power Maru, Peerless Martial Arts Skills, General Fusion Panel, Super Capacity Storage Space, and Summoning Art Panel. The host currently only has one chance to draw a lottery. Do you want to conduct a beginner draw? Yes. Li Xian thought without hesitation. The lottery wheel immediately turned. Stop. With Li Xian's instructions, the lottery wheel came to a stop. The pointer points to Super Invincible Daimaru. He originally hoped to draw a super powerful mental technique or a fusion panel for generals. Well, this super invincible powerful pill is better than nothing. Does the host receive the prize they have drawn? Yes. Of course you need to claim it. Don't waste it. Next up. A yellow pill with a black tint appeared in Li Xian's palm. Li Xian hesitated for a moment and put the pill into his mouth. Not long. A powerful airflow was flowing through the body, impacting the Ren and Du meridians. Li Xian felt immense pain in his body. It seems like countless ants are biting. Damn it. Shouldn't the pills rewarded by the system transform me into a strong person? Why do I feel like I'm being tortured? Li Xian fell on the couch in pain. Distorted face shape and pale skin. A cold sweat emanated from the forehead. Ah! He couldn't help but scream in pain. Fortunately, this kind of pain did not last long. The powerful airflow inside the body broke through the Ren and Du meridians, wandering through the 8 extraordinary meridians. The pain just now disappeared without a trace, and my internal organs felt incredibly comfortable. The muscles of the body have become stronger. Eyes bright and lively. I feel like my body is getting lighter, but my strength seems to be increasing. But there hasn't been much change in height. At first glance, others may not notice that he has undergone significant changes. No one knew that Li Xian had undergone a complete transformation at this time. There is a powerful force surging out of the body at any time. Hosts can use their minds to view personal property panels. After listening to the system prompt, Li Xian silently said, "View my property panel." The personal subordinate panel will be displayed immediately. Host. Li Xian Strength. Quenched Body 1 Heavy Battle Value. 5,000/10,000 Martial Arts. 0. Strange, I haven't participated in any battles yet, nor have I defeated any enemies. Why do I have combat value? Li Xian felt puzzled in his heart. Due to the host taking the super invincible power pill and receiving a system reward of 5,000 combat points. The system automatically explains to Li Xian. Li Xuanxin was overjoyed. I thought, Super Invincible Maru was just a name for itself, but I didn't expect it to bring me a big harvest directly. With this system, one has the opportunity to stand out. It seems that joining the military is a necessary path to become stronger. The idea of joining the army was completely ignited. It's getting stronger and stronger. Now that Li Tang has just established his country, there is no unified world, and many anti-kings have not been eliminated. There are battlefields everywhere. As a commoner, perhaps I happen to take this opportunity to gain military achievements and achieve great things. Bang! Right now. The door was kicked open. Li Xian's grandfather rushed in. Chapter 2. Joining the army. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xianer, what happened? Grandpa said anxiously. It's okay, grandfather. Li Xian knew that his painful moans had startled his grandfather just now. My grandson accidentally bumped into his knee just now. Why are you so careless? Grandpa may seem reproachful, but his tone carries a hint of concern. Li Xian smiled apologetically and then said in a serious tone. Grandfather, my grandson has a decision to tell you. Oh. My grandson wants to join the army. Joining the army. Grandpa frowned. You have a thin physique and are not suitable for military service. No, my grandson has confidence in becoming an outstanding soldier. Li Xian said decisively, his eyes filled with determination. Grandpa remained silent for a while, then sighed and looked at Li Xian. Child, I know you have your own ideas, but you should know that joining the military is a very difficult road. On the battlefield, life and death are just fleeting moments. Moreover, you also have to face all the cruelty and pain brought about by war. My grandson knows, Li Xian answered firmly, but I also know that only by joining the army can one truly become a man. Only by joining the military can we change the status quo and stand out. Grandpa listened to Li Xian's words, but his furrowed brow did not spread. He knows that this child has been feeling down all day since being rejected for marriage. He also knew that in this uncertain dynasty, the most direct and simple way for ordinary civilians like them to obtain a channel for advancement was to establish military achievements. He also considered that instead of letting the child live aimlessly, it would be better for him to give it a try. But just thinking about Li Xian's thin and weak body, how could he possibly go to the battlefield? Grandpa remained silent for a moment and patted Li Xian's shoulder, saying, You come with me. Li Xian followed his grandfather to the woodshed full of doubts. Grandpa moved 3 large bundles of firewood and pointed to a stranger's knife leaning against the corner, with a serious expression. Xianer, if you can pick up this mo dao with both hands, I will let you join the army. Li Xian walked forward and examined the mo dao in front of him. This mo dao is over 10 meters long by sight, made entirely of iron, and consists of 3 parts. The blade, handle, and blade. The blade is over 3 feet long and has blades on both sides. The blade is sharp and the cold is overwhelming. Strange, why does the firewood house have such a stranger's knife? This knife was stored here by an old friend and has not been touched for over 20 years. Grandpa seemed to see Li Xian's question and took the initiative to explain. Without further questioning, Li Xian took a deep breath and held the handle of the knife in his right hand. First weigh it, then lift it forcefully. Due to excessive force, I almost stumbled backwards. Li Xiangang has only recently gained divine power and has not yet mastered the power. I thought I would do my best, but I didn't expect that I could easily lift the Zhangbai Mo Dao. Li Xian stood still and lifted the Mo Dao over his head with one hand. He finally realized that he had gained divine power. Grandpa's face changed when he saw this. Feeling both surprised and surprised. Grandfather, if my grandson can lift this knife with one hand, can he enlist in the military? Li Xian looked at his grandfather in disbelief and smiled slightly. Grandpa came to his senses. This Mo Dao weighs 100 pounds, why can you lift it with one hand? Even now, the grandson is not hiding anything from his grandfather. In fact, half a year ago, my grandson ran into an expert and was taught martial arts skills by him. Li Xian put down his Mo Dao and said seriously. Because the expert once emphasized that it is not allowed to tell others about learning from him. Therefore, The grandson did not tell his grandfather and asked for his forgiveness. He can't just tell his grandfather that he got the system. Speak it out, Grandpa can't understand either. Only by fabricating a white lie. Grandpa stared at Li Xian with half faith and half doubt, but did not delve deeper. Looking back on the past 6 months, Xianer has indeed been somewhat abnormal. This sword has been hidden here for over 20 years, and I cannot easily lift it myself. Today I was lifted by Xianer, perhaps it was arranged by the heavens. It's okay. Maybe it's fate. Grandpa let out a soft sigh. Since you are determined to join the army, I cannot stop you either. However, I have one more requirement. Li Xian stared at his grandfather with questioning. If you have the ambition to join the army, you are only allowed to join Li Tang's army. Grandpa's tone was unusually serious. Okay, no problem. Li Xian didn't think much. He had originally planned to join Li Tang's army. As a traveler, he naturally knew that Li Tang was the one who unified the world. Joining the Li Tang camp is the only way to have the opportunity to obtain military achievements and be granted the title of Marquis and General. Remember, joining the military is not an easy task. Grandpa's expression and tone returned to kindness. You must constantly hone your skills in the army to become an outstanding soldier. Thank you for your grandfather's support. Li Xian gratefully said, my grandson must achieve military merit and stand out. Grandpa smiled and nodded. Suddenly, he seemed to remember something. By the way, do you have that half of the jade pendant with you? Always wearing it. Li Xian said, wanting to take it out from the collar under his neck. Grandpa gestured to him not to take it out and said seriously. Remember, the half-piece of jade pendant you are wearing cannot be casually shown to others. Why? When the time comes, I will naturally tell you the reason. Okay. Li Xian didn't ask further. Anyway, when asked about the reason before, Grandpa said the same. Grandfather, this Mo Dao is destined for his grandson. Li Xian held a Mo Dao and turned to his grandfather, saying. Can you give this Mo Dao as a gift to your grandson? Of course you can. Grandpa doesn't hesitate to think. Grandfather, rest assured that his grandson is no longer a weak and incompetent person on the outside. When his grandson establishes military achievements, he will return home in glory and support his grandfather. Li Xian's tone was incredibly firm. You can join the army with peace of mind, I will wait for you at home. Grandpa moved. Li Xian nodded and shifted his gaze to the blade of the Mo Dao. He gently caressed the blade. As if caressing one's own child. Ding, the system suddenly sends a prompt. The host obtains a precious sword, triggers a sword technique skill, and generates martial arts attributes. Congratulations to the host, the martial arts skill, breaking through the void 18 forms has been generated. I didn't expect to obtain both Mo Dao and martial arts skills. Li Xuanxin was delighted that before setting off, he found time to learn this set of 18 moves to cut through the void sword techniques. At this time, it was November of the second year of Wuda. Not long ago, Lu Wuzhou captured Taiyuan and defeated the Tang army. He sent General Song Jingang to continue advancing southward and successively occupied Jinzhou, Jiangzhou, Longmen and other places. Li Er led the elite soldiers of Guangzhou, braved the severe cold to cross the Yellow River in Longmen, stationed troops in Baibi, and confronted the Song Jingang army. Seized the opportunity to reclaim the land plundered by Song Jingang. Li Er was stationed in Baibi city, located in Jiangzhou, and was not in a hurry to attack Song Jingang's troops. Instead, he was released to pacify the people. Promulgate a series of measures to benefit the people, resulting in a large number of dependent people in the vicinity. A few days later, Li Xian carried a Mo Dao to the registration office of Tang army recruits outside Baibi city. In order to maintain a low profile before joining the army, he deliberately wrapped the blade in a cloth bag to avoid being too ostentatious. He stood in front of the registration officer, with a long line of people standing behind him. They are all queuing up to register for enlistment. Most of them bring their own weapons and armor. During the Sui and Tang dynasties, the system of government troops was implemented. It's not surprising to bring your own armor, weapons, horses, etc. Chapter 3. Battle Value Panel Generation. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Name. The registrar asked expressionlessly. Li Xian. Li Xian replied. Age. Just over 16. Hometown. So thin and frail, it seems like one's hands are powerless to bind a chicken. Li Xian was about to answer when a tall and burly man behind him sneered. This big man's name is Nyodali. He is over 6 feet tall, with shoulders as wide as a door, a shaky beard, and a rough voice. This kind of person may not be able to bear the hardships of the military camp and flee home before going to the battlefield. That's right, that's right. The people behind Nyodali agreed. Being with such people can only drag you down. Li Xian's eyes furrowed slightly as he was about to refute, when the registration officer interjected. Our Tang army has always been unrestricted in recruiting soldiers. Even for the elderly, young, sick, and disabled, as long as they enter our Tang army camp, they will definitely be trained into brave soldiers. After a slight pause, the registrar's gaze shifted back to Li Xian. Hometown. Greenwater Town in Jiangzhou. Well, that's it. Wait on the side, someone will take you into the military camp later. Li Xian said, good, and then walked to the side to wait. Nyodali glanced at Li Xian, his gaze still full of contempt. The waiting new recruits chatted in small groups, but no one paid attention to Li Xian. In their eyes, people like Li Xian will leave in just a few days. Lazy to have an intersection with him. Since they looked at each other coldly, Li Xian was too lazy to pay attention to them. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully enlisting. Get 2 lucky draw opportunities. The system suddenly sends a prompt. Does the host draw immediately? Yes. Anyway, staying here is boring. Next up. Li Xian's mind presented a holographic projection lottery wheel. The turntable is marked with Super Capacity Storage Space, Summoning Panel, Overlord Bow, Red Rabbit Horse, Zangbaping Hu Spear, Phoenix Winged Silver Helmet and Dragon Scale Silver Armor, and Chasing the Wind 1,000-Mile Horse. Li Xian turned the wheel with his mind. After a few turns of the wheel, the tip of the pointer points towards the Super Capacity Storage Space. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Super Capacity Storage Space. The host can temporarily store the items rewarded by the system in this space without a systematic explanation. Li Xian could also guess what this Super Capacity Storage Space was used for. Thinking of another chance for a lottery, he continued to mentally rotate the wheel. Next second. The lottery wheel is spinning again. After a few laps, the tip of the pointer pointed to Phoenix Winged Silver Helmet and Dragon Scale Silver Armor. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Phoenix Winged Silver Helmet and Dragon Scale Silver Armor. Li Xian temporarily stored the Phoenix Winged Silver Helmet and Dragon Scale Silver Armor in the storage space of the system. He can't let his armor automatically fit on him in front of everyone. Host successfully registered for enlistment. Battle Value Panel generated. The system prompts again. The host will obtain corresponding combat points by killing enemies, capturing enemies, or persuading them to surrender in battles. With the acquisition of battle points, the host's martial arts will increase. Here we are, the battle value panel has finally arrived. This means that Li Xian will have to kill more enemies in the future in order to improve himself faster. 2 hours later. The last new recruit registered at the new recruit registration office has been completed. A colonel surnamed Yu, wearing a helmet and armor, walked over with a dozen or so personal soldiers. Everyone gather. Captain Yu roared. Li Xian and other new recruits quickly gathered. But queues are not like queues, they are crooked and crooked. Most people don't even know how to stand upright. Captain Yu is used to it. Glancing sideways, he commanded. Follow me into the military camp. With a big wave of his hand, a few of his own soldiers stepped forward and shouted loudly at the new recruits, urging them to move quickly. Li Xian was excited in his heart. His military career is about to officially begin. The time to go to the battlefield to kill the enemy and gain military merit is also approaching. Under the leadership of his own soldiers, Li Xian and other new recruits entered the military camp and arrived at the campus. In addition to hundreds of newly recruited soldiers such as Li Xian, thousands of newly arrived soldiers have already gathered on the campus. The Tang army has indeed won the hearts of the people, and so many new soldiers have come to join in a short time. Li Xian looked at the dark crowd and thought to himself. Not long after, a majestic general strode to the podium. Report to General, the new recruits who have just entered have gathered here. Please give them a lecture. Captain Yu bowed and reported. The general took the first 2 steps and scanned the new recruits on the school field with his head held high and his chest held high. The sound was like a thunderous bell. I am Yin Kaishan, the Minister of War of Daxingtai. Today, on behalf of the Tang Dynasty, I welcome you all to become a member of the Tang Army. From today on, you are all my Tang Dynasty elites. Your choice of the Tang Dynasty is a wise move. The Tang Army is a brave, decisive, and victorious army that dares to fight. As a member of the Tang Army, you must always maintain a high fighting spirit and be prepared for battle. The Tang Army is a loyal army to the Tang Dynasty. You must always maintain loyalty and be loyal to the Tang Dynasty. The Tang Army is an army that cares for the people. We must always cherish the people and seek the welfare of the people of the world. The great Tang Dynasty will lead your troops to persevere, suppress the rebels from all directions, and unify the world. Although you are new recruits, you must abide by military law when entering the military camp. The Tang Dynasty ruled by military law, and whoever dares to violate the military law will not be lenient. Mild cases may involve military staff serving, severe cases may involve capital punishment. Some newly recruited soldiers who were originally standing casually couldn't help but straighten up upon hearing this. The Tang Dynasty has clear rewards and punishments. If there are punishments, there will be rewards. Yin Kaishan's story changed. Those who perform meritorious deeds on the battlefield will definitely receive rewards. With your hard work, if you go to the battlefield and bravely kill the enemy in the future, you will naturally gain military achievements and become the general of the Tang Dynasty like you did before. Li Xian's blood boiled as he listened. He decided to train hard and become a true Tang Dynasty warrior. I won't say much about the rest of the words. I look forward to you all dominating the battlefield and establishing military achievements. After Yin Kaishan finished speaking, he instructed the captain to say a few words before turning around and leaving. Captain Yu scanned the new recruits in the campus and spoke loudly. General Yin has already spoken the words of this instruction, and this colonel will no longer be verbose. The main types of troops in the Tang Dynasty were cavalry, infantry, archers, and crossbowmen. I will follow the orders of my lieutenant below. Those who are good at riding, stand out. As soon as the words were spoken, hundreds of new recruits marched out. A lieutenant led them to other places to test their riding skills. Those who are good at archery, stand out. Captain Yu continued with the order. Hundreds of new recruits have been deployed. They left with another lieutenant. Skilled fighters, stand out. Hundreds of new recruits were immediately deployed. At this point, there were still over 300 new recruits standing in their original positions. This includes Li Xian. Those with great strength, stand out. The order from Captain Yu came from the command platform. Li Xian straightened up and took the first few steps with his head held high. There are still over 200 people like him. Previously, Niu Dali, who had mocked him, also appeared. A lieutenant walked over and asked Li Xian and others to follow him to the other end of the campus. They saw several stone locks placed in front of them. There are big and small. There are 100 pounds, 200 pounds, 300 pounds, 500 pounds, 800 pounds, and 1,000 pounds. Chapter 4. Be an ordinary soldier charging into battle. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The lieutenant pointed to several large stone locks in front of him. If you dare to admit your strength, then prove it to me. Those who can lift a stone lock of 100 or 200 pounds are considered qualified. Those who can lift 300 pounds of stone locks can become Tang Dynasty Reserve elite soldiers. Those who can lift 500 pounds of stone locks can directly become Tang Dynasty elite soldiers. Those who can lift 800 kilograms of stone locks have a chance to become Qin Prince's personal soldiers. If you can't lift 100 pounds of stone locks, you have to be the leader. Do you all understand? Understood. The deputy colonel glanced at the crowd and said, "Okay, who will come first?" "I'll come first." The first person to answer is Niu Dali. He crossed the 300-pound stone lock and walked directly to the 500-pound stone lock, took a deep breath, and bent down. First, hold the lock with your right hand and weigh it. Everyone stared together, full of anticipation. Niu vigorously exerted his right hand, but could not lift it directly, only lifting it to his waist. He frowned and put down the stone lock. Take another deep breath. This time, hold the lock with both hands. Then, he shouted loudly, his waist stiffened, and the 500-pound stone lock was lifted above his head with both hands. My arms are straight and not bent, but they are shaking. His face turned red, as if he had even used his strength to breastfeed. Seeing Niu vigorously lift the stone lock, everyone cheered in unison. Niu Dali put down the stone lock and took a big breath, with a proud smile on his face. The lieutenant nodded in satisfaction and asked him to stand on the left. The others approached one after another, attempting to lift the stone lock. However, these stone locks are very heavy, and no one else can lift 500 pounds of stone locks. There are dozens of hands lifting 200 pounds of stone locks, dozens of hands lifting 100 pounds of stone locks, and less than 10 people barely lifting 300 pounds of stone locks with both hands. The lieutenant looked at them, shook his head, and looked dissatisfied. With just a little strength, do you still want to become a Tang Dynasty elite soldier? At this moment, only Li Xian remained motionless. The lieutenant's gaze swept over Li Xian, and upon seeing his appearance, he immediately showed a look of disdain. Li Xian twisted his neck, rubbed his hands, and slowly walked to the stone lock. He bent down calmly, holding the lock with one hand. The lieutenant's gaze fell on Li Xian, and his face stiffened. It seems that you can't lift the stone lock, so go directly to report to the Huotou army. He is not suitable for a hot-headed army with his physique. Niu vigorously mocked. Cooking over fire should be suitable. Someone is mocking. Cooking over a fire also requires strength, just him. I'm afraid he can't even chop firewood. Niu Dali sneered. Even if he dares to stand out like this, is there a problem with his brain? Some people disdain it. Haha. Most of them laughed at Li Xian loudly. The lieutenant glared at Li Xian impatiently and said. Huo Tujin happens to be short of a vegetable picker, you go quickly. Li Xian sneered at their mockery. He walked up to the heavy stone lock and calmly bent down, holding the lock handle with one hand. Everyone saw the situation and all kinds of ridicule came again. Is this kid trying to lift 1,000 pounds of heavy stone lock? It seems like he's really having a brain problem. Not just a brain problem, he's just a lunatic. Why is a fool allowed to enlist? It's strange that even a fool can enlist. Are we in the wrong place? The lieutenant's face turned ugly when he heard everyone say this. Right now. Li Xian took a deep breath, exerted force on his arms and waist, and directly lifted the 1,000-pound heavy stone lock high. His face remained calm and composed. Everyone's eyes widened like copper bells when they saw the situation. I was stunned and forgot to cheer. Until Li Xian put down the stone lock, suddenly someone in the crowd shouted. My mother. He lifted 1,000 pounds of stone lock. Next second. The crowd cheered loudly. The lieutenant's eyes and face were full of disbelief. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Niu Dali, in a state of suspicion, couldn't help but make a sound. It must be a problem with this stone lock. He said, walked up to the 1,000-pound stone lock, bent down, reached out to grab the lock handle, and lifted it with force, but the stone lock remained motionless. He furrowed his brow. Grasping the lock with both hands, even the strength of breastfeeding was used, but the 1,000-pound stone lock remained motionless. This is really a 1,000-pound stone lock. Niu Dali murmured softly. In my opinion, you are more suitable to be the Hyo Tujin. Li Xian glanced at Niu Dali and mocked him. Niu Dali's face turned red and white, but he couldn't refute it. What about lifting a mere 500-pound stone lock? I'll show you what the real Hercules are. Li Xian said, holding a 1,000-pound stone lock handle in his right hand and an 800-pound stone lock handle in his left hand. Before everyone could react, he calmly lifted both the 1,000-pound and 800-pound stone locks. Keep your arms straight without any shaking. He lifted those two large stone locks like lifting two bamboo baskets. Wow! The crowd first erupted in an uproar, then cheered loudly. The lieutenant was also stunned. Li Xian fiercely threw down two stone locks. Bang! Bang! Shake the earth twice. Captain Yu was also attracted by the cheers from here. What happened? Captain Yu asked Lieutenant. The lieutenant regained his senses and quickly told the captain about Li Xian easily lifting both a 1,000-pound stone lock and an 800-pound stone lock at the same time. Upon hearing this, Captain Yu looked at Li Xian incredulously. Li Xian walked over and asked the lieutenant with a smirk on his face. Can I become the Qin prince's personal soldier directly? The lieutenant looked at the captain with a questioning gaze. You have this divine power, and in principle, you can become the Prince of Qin's personal soldier. Captain Yu hesitated for a moment and said. But becoming a personal soldier of the King of Qin is of great significance, and this captain needs to first report to General Yin. However, with your divine power, you can definitely be included in the Tang Dynasty's elite army queue. It's okay. There's no need to trouble. I don't want to become the Prince of Qin's personal soldier, nor do I want to become an elite soldier directly. Li Xuanfu showed a serious expression. I just want to go to the battlefield soon and be an ordinary soldier charging forward. Li Xian's words surprised and strange everyone present. How many people dream of becoming the personal soldier of the King of Qin? Why did Li Xian give up this great opportunity? Captain Yu stared curiously at Li Xian. What is your surname and who is it? Li Xian responded without hesitation. My surname is Li Mingxian. Li Xian, why do you only want to become an ordinary soldier? Captain Yu stared at Li Xian, his curious gaze filled with anticipation. Everyone stared at Li Xian with questioning eyes, hoping for his response. My goal is to go into battle and kill the enemy, becoming an outstanding warrior. Li Xian spoke firmly. I want to use my own strength to win respect and honor. I want to gain military achievements through battlefield training, and one day become a Tang Dynasty elite through military achievements. Instead of obtaining illusory honors through such shortcuts. Li Xian considered that if he became the personal soldier of the King of Qin, he would have fewer opportunities to fight directly on the battlefield. He needs to fight and kill enemies on the battlefield in order to gain combat points faster and improve his martial arts skills. When the martial arts level rises and military achievements are achieved, there will also be a chance to become the Prince of Qin's personal soldier in the future. As an ordinary soldier, there are often more opportunities to go to the battlefield. Chapter 5. In the army, the strong are respected. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Captain, you looked at Li Xian's resolute gaze and nodded thoughtfully. You have ambition. The captain of this school remembers you. If all the soldiers of the Tang Dynasty were like you, Lu Wuzhou wouldn't worry about not being destroyed. After a pause, Captain Yu changed his tone. Well, with your strength, it's suitable for archers. Li Xian didn't even think about it and directly refused the colonel. I am not good at archery, please allow me to choose other branches of the army. Captain Yu hesitated for a moment again. Okay. From today on, you, Li Xian, will be the great Tang sword soldier. Captain, I look forward to your achievements in killing enemies on the battlefield. Li Xian's body curved slightly and arched his hand towards Captain Yu. Captain Yu gave a faint smile and turned to the others with a serious tone. Those who have just passed the test can choose the appropriate branch. Next, some people chose archers, some chose spearmen, and some chose broadsword soldiers. Report to Colonel, I, Niu Dali, also want to join the big knife army. Niu Dali bowed loudly to the captain. Thinking that Li Xian had such divine power and didn't take shortcuts, Niu Dali felt embarrassed to choose to become a reserve elite soldier directly. He looks down on people who are inferior to him, but he loves face. Once you have made a decision, you cannot repent. Have you considered it carefully? Colonel Yu stared at Niu Dali. Never regret it. Okay, permission. In the end, about 100 of these new recruits became swordsmen. Captain Yu reported to Yin Kaishan about Li Xian's possession of divine power. Yin Kaishan listened with half faith and half doubt. In order to verify whether what Captain Yu said was true, he personally went to the location of the new recruits and met Li Xian. Then he ordered Li Xian to lift a 1,000-pound stone block in front of him. When he saw Li Xian easily lifting 1,000 pounds of stone block. First, he was amazed, then he exclaimed. Divine power, divine power. It is fortunate for our army to have someone with such divine power join us. Li Xian received praise from Yin Kaishan and immediately bowed to thank him. Before dark, Li Xian and others were resettled in the new barracks. Entering the camp, Niu Dali suddenly knelt down on one knee and arched his hand at Li Xian. Brother Li, I, Niu Dali, didn't know what was going on today. I bumped into Brother Li. Please have a lot of them. Brother Niu, please stand up. Li Xian forced out a smile, as the saying goes, no fight, no acquaintance. We are already in the same league, let the past pass us by. Since the other party apologizes voluntarily, Li Xian will not pursue it. Stay on the front line today, so we can meet again in the future. Besides, they will be fighting within the same army in the future. He needs colleagues who fight side by side and support each other. We cannot always be on guard against being ambushed by our own comrades during combat. He could also see that Niu Dali was straightforward in his speech and didn't have much substance. Build a good relationship with him, maybe in the future when he goes to the battlefield, he can help himself. Niu Dali stood up, bowed and arched his hand. Brother Li has a broad mind, and I am truly ashamed of his strength. Li Xian patted Niu Dali's shoulder with a smile on his face. Brother Niu's words are heavy. From this moment on, you and I will be sworn brothers in life and death. Okay. Niu Dali gave a hearty smile. From today on, we will be brothers. Li Xian laughed heartily. Later, Li Xian learned that when he enlisted, the reason why Niu Dali spoke ill of him was out of good intentions. Niu Dali didn't want to see Li Xian go to the battlefield to die in vain after joining the army, and wanted him to know the difficulties and retreat. Many new recruits walked over and praised Li Xian's previous display of divine power. Dear colleagues, I suggest that from today on, Li Xian will be our elder brother. Niu Dali exclaimed brightly. Big brother. Big brother, everyone shouted together. In the army, the strong are respected. The reason why everyone quickly subdued Li Xian was because they saw his divine power with their own eyes. On the first day of Li Xian's enlistment, received recognition from colleagues. In this dynasty, it is one of the few. All of this is due to strength. With strength, others will naturally look up to you. Killing enemies to gain military achievements is just around the corner. Bibi City Center. Within the commander-in-chief's mansion. A tall and delicate general in his early 20s, dressed in battle armor and not angry, was staring at the sand table in front of him. He is Li Er, the king of Qin. Beside him, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, and Changsun Wuji were also watching the sand table. These people are the confidants of Li Er. At this time, Li Er was still the king of Qin, but the power of the king was vaguely revealed between his eyebrows. The sand table indicates that areas such as Jinzhou, Bingzhou, Jizhou, and Huizhou have been occupied by Lu Wuzhou. Li Er's face remained expressionless. The room was silent. There is a sound when the needle falls. I will definitely retrieve the land of Hedong one by one. Li Er muttered to himself. The voice is low but full of authority. Lu Wuzhou and Song Jingang, your two heads have been determined by the king. The world will definitely be unified by my Tang Dynasty. Report to King Qin. Right now. The guard outside the door reported loudly. General Yin, please meet me. Li Er didn't even lift his head and said, pass it on. Quickly, Yin Kaishan walked in. Li Er slowly raised his head and glanced at Yin Kaishan. What's up? Yin Kaishan bowed and arched his hand. Report to the king of Qin that as of today, we have obtained over 3,000 new recruits. Thank you, General Yin. Li Er's lips curved slightly, passing a smile. King Qin's words are solemn. Yin Kaishan hurriedly said, as a vassal of the great Tang Dynasty, I also serve as the Minister of War of the Great Xingtai. Assisting in the placement of new soldiers is within my responsibility. After a slight pause, he continued. There will be one more thing to report. Among the new recruits recruited today, one of them is able to lift a 1,000-pound stone lock with his right hand and an 800-pound stone lock with his left hand. Lift it up at the same time. Li Er became interested. Yes. Surprisingly, there is a person with such divine power. What is the name of this person? My surname is Li Mingxian. Li Xian. Alright, I remember him now. This person could have directly entered the elite army camp, but he refused. Oh. Yin Kaishan immediately told Li Er about Li Xian's situation. After hearing this, Li Er chuckled. Interesting. If I had more soldiers like this in the Tang Dynasty, unifying the world would be just around the corner. General Yin, for someone with such divine power, we must cultivate them well. I believe that he will become a fierce general of the Tang Dynasty in the future. No. Yin Kaishan quickly nodded, indicating that he would definitely make good use of Li Xian's ability and strength. Li Xian has been incorporated into the Great Sword Army, and with his divine power, he will definitely play a role in the army. Li Eruo nodded slightly after some thought. This large sword army is newly established by our king, and we need someone with divine power like Li Xian. Yin Kaishan then suggested to Li Er that since Li Xian had such divine power, it would be better to add him to the Tang Dynasty's training program for fierce generals, providing him with better training and opportunities to play a greater role. After listening, Li Er agreed and asked Yin Kaishan if he could personally take charge of this matter. Yin Kaishan nodded and said he was willing to take on this responsibility, and said he would start arranging immediately. Li Er nodded and then the topic changed. Come, General Yin, let's take a look together and see how our Tang army should annihilate Song Jin Gang. Yin Kaishan walked up to the sand table and stared down. Someone, come and discuss with Qin Xiong, Qing Yaojin, Li Daozong, Li Shiji, and Zhang Shigui. Li Erqiao shouted outside the door. No. One of the guards outside responded and ran away quickly. Chapter 6. Gunmen's Provocation. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Not long after. A few people have come from outside the headquarters. Everyone had a burly figure, dressed in battle armor, holding a horizontal sword, all displaying a resolute and majestic expression. After receiving a message from the guards outside the door, Li Er called them in. Qin Qiong, Qing Yaojin, Li Daozong, Li Shiji, and Zhang Shigui left their horizontal knives outside the door and strode in. I will see the king of Qin at the end. Several generals bowed to Li Er. Free gift. Li Er waved his hand. Qin Qiong, Qing Yaojin, Li Daozong, Li Shiji, and Zhang Shigui straightened up and looked at Li Er with questioning eyes. Tonight, I'm calling you all to discuss the situation against the enemy. Li Er glanced at the generals present and said solemnly. We have been stationed here for a month now. Do you think we can go to war with Song Jingang's troops? Report to King Qin. I believe that we should immediately send troops to execute Song Jingang. Qing Yaojin takes the conversation first. I am willing to be the vanguard and lead my army directly to attack Lu Wuzhou's lair. Qin Qiong, Yin Kaishan, Li Daozong, Li Shiji, and Zhang Shigui remained silent. What suggestions do the four of you have? Li Er looked at them. He did not ask for the opinions of Feng Xianling, Du Ruhui, and Changsun Wuji. It is obvious that these people have already discussed with Li Er's Hang. I will only wait for orders from the king of Qin. Qin Qiong responded with a serious expression. The last general is also waiting for the order of the king of Qin. Li Daozong agreed. I will submit a second proposal. Zhang Shigui also agreed. I will think it's not the time yet. Yin Kaishan said thoughtfully. General Yin's words are absolutely right. Li Shiji agreed with Yin Kaishan. I also believe that we need to wait a little longer. Li Er glanced at Li Shiji and then stared at Yin Kaishan. What is the reason? We followed the orders of King Qin and remained steadfast on the wall, only sending small troops to find opportunities to disrupt the enemy. We have achieved initial results. As a result, the food and supplies under Song Jingang's command gradually declined, the soldiers became increasingly exhausted, and their power gradually declined. Yin Kaishan is neither too tight nor too slow. But the generals of Song Jingang, Wei Qigong and Sun Xiang, are powerful. If we send troops to attack Song Jingang at this time, Wei Qigong and Sun Xiang will definitely use their troops to rush in, fearing a pincer attack on our army. Unless we first eliminate Yi Qigong and Sun Xiang's troops. Li Er nodded slightly and thought for a moment. General Yin's words make sense. However, after careful consideration, I have decided to prepare to send troops to attack Song Jingang's troops. Seeing the generals looking at him with questioning eyes, Li Er added. I know that during this period of time, I, a sharp warrior of the Tang Dynasty, have remained steadfast on the wall, and there have been complaints from soldiers. Believing that the king was timid and dared not fight against Song Jingang, the morale of the army was affected. Now there needs to be a big war to restore the morale of the Tang Dynasty's elite, so that they can launch a total attack on Song Jingang's troops in the future. If Wei Qigong and Sun Xiang send troops to support Song Jingang, it would be exactly what I want. What does King Qin mean? Yin Kaishan asked cautiously. The other generals, Qi, looked at Li Er with a hint of anticipation in their questioning eyes. Li Er gave a light dry cough. I have ordered the urgent envoy of Hongling to rush to Chang'an, and I request your majesty's decree that the army attack the traitor LV Chongmao in Xia County. I believe that if LV Chongmao is attacked, he will definitely seek help from Song Jingang. Song Jingang will not ignore him and will definitely send Wei Qigong, who is not far from Xia County, or seek help. At that time, our army will be able to wait for an opportunity to ambush. The generals nodded in understanding when they heard this. Qi shouted, King Qin is wise. Go back and be prepared for combat at any time. No. After several generals left, Li Erei punched the position of Xia County on the sand table. Lu Chong Mao, I will take you to the sword first. Next second. He straightened up and thought of Li Xian. Li Xian, will you become the sharp blade that unifies the world for this king? I will wait and see. Half a month later. Li Xian and other new recruits underwent basic training in combat, archery, equestrianism, formation, and team language. In this era, there is a reverence for military force. The implementation is also based on the prefectural military system. Most men have a habit of practicing martial arts since childhood. Therefore, there is no need for much training in combat. Although Li Xian and other swordsmen belong to infantry, they also need to understand horses and horsemanship. After they go to the battlefield, they are likely to face the enemy's cavalry first. Know yourself and know your enemy, and win every battle. Only by understanding can one identify their weaknesses and carry out a killing. For this, we specifically hired people to make simple wooden horses, bamboo horses, and grass horses to train them in killing. Shua. On the training ground. Li Xian swung his knife and chopped off a wooden horse in front of him. Bang! The blade light fell, and the entire wooden horse shattered in response. Shredded wood splashing. It's like being hit by a 1,000-pound hammer. Wow! The comrades behind Li Xian cheered him in unison. Li Xian. Li Xian. Li Xian. Brother Li is mighty. Brother Li is mighty. Swordsmen are invincible. The cow behind Li Xian shouted loudly than anyone else. Swordsmen are invincible. The soldiers of the knife squad shouted. The several veterans responsible for training couldn't help but nod in approval upon seeing the situation. She. What's so powerful about this? Where did the swordsman come from so arrogant? At this moment, disdainful voices could be heard from the nearby squad of spearmen. When Laozi shattered the wooden horse with a single shot, your hair had not yet grown. The other party's voice was loud, clearly intentionally making Li Xian and others hear clearly. Who's farting here? Niu Dali cursed first. Dare to scold me. In the squad of long spearmen next to him, a tall and muscular man walked out, holding a heavy long spear in his hand. He looked disdainfully at the speaker, with a threatening expression in his eyes. This person's name is Luo Yu, and he is a colonel-level officer responsible for training gunmen. Kid, who are you talking to? Luo Yu asked coldly. Niu took a strong step forward and glared at the opponent without showing any weakness. I'm talking to you, you ignorant fool. Niu Dali countered without hesitation. Luo Yu's face turned pale with anger, and his long spear in his hand suddenly shook, making a buzzing sound. He aimed at Niu Dali and prepared to launch an attack. At this moment, Li Xian walked up to Niu Dali and looked at Luo Yu calmly. Brother, I do have some strength. You don't need to be so excited, do you? Li Xian said with a smile on his face. Luo Yu stared at Li Xian, seeing his calm and confident attitude, but his anger grew stronger in his heart. Kid, in front of me Luo Yu, do you also deserve to say that you have strength? Brother Li doesn't have strength. Do you have strength? Niu Dali couldn't help but interject. I'll show you what true strength is. Luo walked with great strides to one of the wooden horses, his spear piercing in his hand. The spear head is like a snake spitting out its message. Puff. The head of the gun pierced into the stomach of the Trojan horse. The hand holding the gun handle first shook left and right, then violently shook. Bang. Another Trojan horse shattered. It's like a bomb installed inside a Trojan horse, shattering wooden planks and splashing them everywhere. Captain Luo is mighty. Captain Luo is mighty. The spearmen are invincible. The spearmen are invincible. The gunmen cheered in unison. Long spear pillar ground. Luo Yu looked at Li Xian proudly. Chapter 7. Go to the battlefield and become a true warrior. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Do you see that? This is what real strength is. A gunman behind Luo Yu made a sound. Li Xian looked at Luo Yu's proud expression and shook his head to himself. He could see that although Luo Yu's strength was good, it was still far from reaching the point where he could surpass the others. Your strength doesn't seem to be on par with mine, but don't be too proud, Li Xian sneered. Upon hearing Li Xian's words, Luo Yu's face darkened and he said coldly. Boy, you are indeed not weak, but you don't inquire about who I am either. If you have the guts, just compare and contrast with Laozi's real gun and real knife. Li Xian hesitated after hearing Luo Yu's words. Seeing Li Xian hesitating, Luo Yu looked contemptuous. What? Are you afraid? If you're afraid, let him kneel down and apologize to me. He pointed at Niu Dali while speaking. Brotherly, teach him a lesson. Niu Dali looked angry with his expression. Okay. Li Xian glanced at Luo Yu and said calmly. Since you want to embarrass yourself in public, I'll play with you. Humph. Today, I'll show you the amazing marksmanship of our Luo family. Luo Yu said, pointing his spear forward. Seeing them about to fight, the new recruits around gathered around. Many people are cheering. Not allowed in the military. Forget it, let him go. A veteran who was responsible for training them had just spoken out to stop, but was pulled aside by another veteran. This person claims to be the distant nephew of King Luo Yi of Yen. He is used to being arrogant and doesn't take us seriously. I don't think Li Xian's strength is inferior to him. It's good to let Li Xian dampen his morale. These veterans pretended not to see and let them fight. The long spear in Luo Yu's hand swung fiercely into the air, and suddenly a sharp whistling sound came from the air. He suddenly turned around, his long spear fluttering in his hand, like a silver dragon, tossing and dancing in the air. Li Xian saw Luo Yu's long spear flying, and his eyebrows furrowed slightly, but he had no intention of retreating. With a horizontal blade in hand, prepare for the battle. He dare not show any underestimation of the enemy. I saw Luo Yu's spear darting in an arc in the air and suddenly piercing towards Li Xian. Li Xian suddenly felt a strong pressure, and his body involuntarily retreated backwards. Through this period of covert training, he has mastered the 18 forms of slashing the void. But it hasn't been through actual combat yet, and I don't know how powerful it is. Today, let's take Luo Yu Lai and have an operation to test our own strength. Bang! Luo Yu's spear plunged fiercely into the ground. He glared at Li Xian and shouted angrily. You are no match for me at all. Li Xian was not intimidated by Luo Yu's aura. He held his breath, calmed his mind, and responded with a firm gaze to Luo Yu. I haven't fought back yet. After hearing this, Luo Yu let out a loud roar, waved his spear, and launched another attack on Li Xian. When the long gun was dancing, it was like a storm. Li Xian showed no weakness in the face of Luo Yu's attack. He no longer retreated, raised his stranger's knife and quickly stepped forward. The sword was like a dragon, and he fought against Luo Yu for several rounds. The figures of the two intertwined, emitting muffled sounds. The soldiers around held their breath and stared intently at the battle. They were amazed by Luo Yu's bravery and Li Xian's resilience, applauding their brilliant performance. However, Li Xian lacks practical experience in combat. When Li Xian was repelled by Luo Yu due to his negligence, the soldiers couldn't help but sweat for him. After a few rounds, Li Xian almost figured out the opponent's moves. He took a deep breath and swung his knife to launch a counterattack against Luo Yu. This time, his sword was even more sharp, like a shooting star piercing the night sky, directly hitting Luo Yu's vital point. Luo Yu was caught off guard and was repelled by Li Xian's attack by a few steps. Li Xuanling's sky whirl slash. The blade slashed towards Luo Yu's head, carrying a strong knife aura. Before the knife arrived, the waves of air rushed towards Luo Yu. The Mo Dao came too quickly, and Luo Yu didn't have time to counterattack. He quickly blocked his gun horizontally. Bang! Li Xian's Mo Dao struck Luo Yu's long spear handle. Make a loud noise. Shocking a circle of air waves, it made the soldiers who were watching in front tremble, causing a burning pain. Some people almost couldn't stand steadily. And Luo Yu's hands were numb from the shock, and his spear was cut off directly. The blade of Mo Dao is less than an inch away from Luo Yu's forehead. Luo Yu knelt down in fear, sweating profusely on his forehead, trembling all over, panting uncontrollably. Your strength is just like that. Li Xian withdrew his sword from behind and said coldly. There are heavens beyond heaven, and there are people beyond man. If I were the enemy, you would have already moved your mind. Luo Yu drooped his head and his body was still trembling. Apart from the recent panic, there was also awkwardness and shame in this trembling. As a member of the Luo family and an instructor in the Spear Squadron, I unexpectedly lost to a new recruit in the Knife Squadron. If this matter were to be spread, what would one look like? Faced with someone stronger than himself, he had to bow his proud head. In the military, what we talk about is strength. Strong enough, only then will others admire. Li Xian used his strength to once again win the applause of the swordsmen and the respect of the gunmen. In the face of strength, no marksman dares to disrespect Li Xian and other swordsmen. Ding! The host defeats a colonel and gains 1,000 combat points. The prompt sent by the system is only one sentence. Li Xian was a bit disappointed and had been hoping for other rewards. I didn't expect that Luo Yu was only worth 1,000 combat points. However, these 1,000 combat points made Li Xian aware that as long as he knocked down the opponent, he didn't need to kill them directly to obtain corresponding combat points. General Yin has an order, all soldiers gather. Suddenly, there are messenger soldiers running around with call signs. With a command, all the new recruits gathered. Not long. Yin Kaishan strode to the martial arts practice center. Glancing at the new recruits on the martial arts arena, heading straight to the theme. Ladies and gentlemen, today is your last day as a new recruit. As soon as these words were spoken, there was a commotion among the new recruits. Many people know that normal new recruit training takes at least a month. Unexpectedly, their training as new recruits ended prematurely. After a general stopped the new soldier who spoke out, Yin Kaishan continued to speak loudly. I, the Tang Dynasty, will go to battle, and you will have the opportunity to engage in practical combat. A true warrior needs to exercise on the battlefield. The new recruits looked at each other, some were surprised, some were excited, and some seemed worried. After all, they have just received over half a month of training and are about to go to the battlefield. War is cruel, and they are still just new recruits. I know your heart is filled with doubts and fears. Yin Kaishan continued. On the battlefield, one will face the test of life and death, and it is necessary to make correct decisions to protect the lives of oneself and companions. Only on the battlefield can one truly exercise a person's courage and resilience, but you are all elite individuals who have undergone strict screening and training, possessing strong and unlimited potential. You will become the backbone of my Tang army. Yin Kaishan's words inspired the new recruits. Chapter 8. Battle of Xia County. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Li Xian and other new recruits began to straighten their backs and looked firmly at Yin Kaishan. They yearned to prove their strength on the battlefield and fight for the glory of the Tang Dynasty. We are about to face a difficult war. Yin Kaishan said seriously. But I believe that with your efforts, we can definitely achieve ultimate victory. Soldiers, dare you fight for me in the Tang Dynasty? Xuan looked at the soldiers on the field. War. All the soldiers responded in unison. Although most new recruits have a fear of actually going to the battlefield, they also know that to become a true warrior, they must have gone to the battlefield and received the baptism of war. For the Tang Dynasty, fight. Xuan drew a horizontal sword from his waist and pointed it straight at the heavens. For the Tang Dynasty, fight. The new soldiers raised their arms and shouted loudly. The Tang Dynasty will surely win. Victory! 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 Li Xian began to realize that they were about to face not only a war, but also a severe test. He believes in himself. He looks forward to going to the battlefield soon. Only by going to the battlefield can he have more opportunities to fight and upgrade, and obtain military achievements. The next day, after the Tang army swore their allegiance, they set off towards their destination, Maoyang River. Before departure, the king of Qin personally led the generals to bid farewell to the soldiers who were going to battle. But the new recruits stood at the back of the army, far away from Li Er. Li Xian and other new recruits were unable to see Li Er's appearance clearly, and they all felt regretful. With the permission of Li Er, Xuan led the infantry and Qin Qiong led the cavalry. Among them, 70% are veterans and 30% are new recruits. This is also Li Er's arrangement. Through the real battlefield, it is the training of new recruits to become the true elite of the Tang Dynasty. The cold winter wind blows fiercely on the earth. Outside the gates of Xia County, there was a bustling crowd, and a high morale army stood in formation. Prince Li Xiaoji of Yong'an, dressed in armor and holding a long spear, rode on a tall warhorse, appearing majestic. Beside him were a group of soldiers including Dugu Huayan and Tang Jian, all waiting for Li Xiaoji's order to take Xia County in one fell swoop. With Li Xiaoji's command, Tang Jian and Dugu Huayan each led an elite army to quickly attack Xia County. LV Chongmao's army, relying on their familiarity with the terrain, stubbornly resisted. However, the army led by Li Xiaoji has accumulated rich combat experience after multiple fierce battles. Under the bravery of the Tang army, LV Chongmao's army gradually retreated. The battle lasted until evening, and all the defenders outside Xia County were defeated by the Tang army. Liu Chongmao knew he couldn't fight, so he withdrew into the city with some of his remaining soldiers and defeated generals. They stubbornly resisted with the advantage of the city wall. In a short period of time, the Tang army was unable to enter the city and annihilate the enemy in one fell swoop. Li Xiaoji ordered the Tang army to station outside the city, waiting for an opportunity to attack. Inside the tent of the Tang military camp, generals such as Li Xiaoji, Tang Jian, Dugu Huayan, Yu Yun, and Lu Shirang are discussing countermeasures. Report to King Yong'an. A scout came to report. Song Jingang's generals Wei Qigong and Sun Xiang led troops to rush to aid LV Chongmao. It's less than 300 miles away from here. Li Xiaoji gestured for the scout to step down and glanced at the generals with a serious expression. Tang Jian and Dugu Huayan, you two lead some troops to continue besieging LV Chongmao. Yu Yun and Lu Shirang, you two lead troops and horses with our king to confront Yu Qigong. Prince Yong'an, wait a moment. Tang Jian stood up and stopped Li Xiaoji. Li Xiaoji immediately stared at Tang Jian with a questioning gaze. Tang Jian said cautiously, I believe that a small group of troops should be ordered to intercept Yu Qigong and Sun Xiang, while other troops should evacuate Xia County before the enemy reinforcements arrive, in order to preserve their strength. General Tang's suggestion is very reasonable. Our army cannot fight hard, we must be wise. Lu Shirang also came forward to agree with Tang Jian. Yu Qigong is a brave person. Although he does not lead many troops, they are all elite troops and cannot be underestimated. You two are boosting others' morale and undermining your own authority. Li Xiaoji didn't think so. Our army defeated LV Chongmao and besieged him in the city, which was a time of high morale. Taking this opportunity, he defeated Yu Qigong and Sun Xiang in one fell swoop. Wei Qigong and Sun Xiang are two generals under Lu Wuzhou's command, and they are enemies of our Tang dynasty. If we don't take this opportunity to defeat them, they will definitely become a hidden danger to the Tang dynasty in the future. Prince Yong'an's words make sense. Du Guhuayan agreed. Our army has already occupied Xia County. If we withdraw now, it will leave the impression that our Tang soldiers dare not engage in direct combat with the enemy in other places, and our army's reputation will also be damaged in the future. But the king of Qin asked us to defeat LV Chongmao and attract Lu Wuzhou's troops and horses. Tang Jian frowned and insisted on his own opinion. Now that our military strategic intention has been achieved, the last general still considers himself pretending to be in a state of retreat and will temporarily withdraw. Li Xiaoji was immediately displeased when he heard Tang Jian move out Li Er. I have been ordered by your majesty to come and suppress LV Chongmao. It is not my turn to issue orders to the king of Qin. I have decided to take this opportunity to defeat Yu Qigong and Sun Xiang, and present their heads to your majesty. Seeing Tang Jian still wanting to speak out, Li Xiaoji's tone sank. If there are any more words of retreat, they should disturb the morale of the army and be beheaded. After hearing this, Tang Jian knew he could no longer persist and said helplessly. The Prince of Yong'an has already made a decision, so I will comply with it. Lu Shirang and Tang Jian exchanged a glance and shook their heads helplessly. Li Xiaoji saw that no one objected anymore and ordered the generals to prepare to confront Yu Qigong and Sun Xiang. Shortly thereafter, Wei Qigong and Sun Xiang led their elite troops to Xia County. The two armies met and immediately engaged in fierce combat. Although the Tang army was brave, Wei Qigong and the troops of Sun Xiang were also elite troops, and the battle fell into a stalemate. Tang Jian privately ordered a confidant to secretly leave Xia County with an urgent report and report the situation here to the king of Qin. 2 days later. Within the city of Baibi. King Li, heir of Qin, was watching the intelligence coming from various sources. Sometimes frowning, sometimes with a gloomy expression, and sometimes with a hint of a smile. Report to King Qin, urgent report from Xia County. Suddenly, the voice of the guards came from outside the door. Enter. Li Er lifted his head. A guard rushed in and respectfully presented a sealed urgent report to Li Er. Li Er opened the urgent report and after reading it, his face changed. Prince Yong'an is in danger. Li Er murmured softly. I have thousands of Tang soldiers in danger. Prince Yong'an, why don't you listen to advice? My thousands of Tang soldiers will die because of your stubbornness, bravery, and lack of strategy. He furrowed his brow and let out a soft sigh. But he quickly returned to normalcy. Whether the entire battle situation in Hedong can be reversed now depends on the Tang army that has already rushed to Mailiang River. He started setting up a game of chess half a month ago, and the key lies in Mailiang River. Yin Kaishan and Qin Xiong, the future of this king is entrusted to you too. Li Er straightened up and came to the window, looking majestically in the direction of Mailiang River through the window. The success or failure of the Mailiang River ambush is not only related to the fate of Li Er, but also to the fate of the Tang dynasty. Chapter 9. Battle Upgrade. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After a long wait and march, Li Xian followed the army to the ambush location designated by Mailiang River. This is a narrow valley with towering cliffs on both sides. The Tang army quickly laid out their positions. As the sun sets in the west, a strong killing aura permeates the sky and earth. Report. A scout ran to report to Yin Kaishan. The enemy is less than 50 miles away from here. Yin Kaishan nodded and turned to look at the soldiers, saying solemnly. The opportunity has arrived for all the soldiers to make contributions to the Tang dynasty. I recently received intelligence that Lu Wuzhou's generals Wei Qigong and Sun Xiang defeated the Prince of Yongnan in Xia County. Now that they have returned to Huizhou, they will surely be proud and underestimate the enemy, neglecting precautions. I am equivalent to ambushing it here, catching the enemy off guard and definitely defeating them. The king of Qin promised that if he could defeat the enemy, he would be rewarded according to his achievements after his formation. All soldiers, for the sake of the Tang dynasty and our glory, we will bravely kill the enemy and showcase our true qualities as men. Yin Kaishan boosted morale. The soldiers clenched their fists and arms. But there was no shouting to prevent exposure. Shortly thereafter, the enemy appeared. Li Xian tightly held the Mo Dao in his hand, feeling a little nervous but more excited. He knew that this was the first and perhaps the last actual battle on the battlefield. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his excited and nervous mood. In the valley, the Tang army ambushed and the enemy advanced to the pass. They rushed into the valley in groups, making loud noises. Still happy that they defeated the Tang army in Xia County. One of them was riding a black war horse, dressed in armor, tall and powerful, with a tiger back and a bare waist, a face like the bottom of a pot, and a prominent general with a tiger beard on his cheek. This person is the fierce General Wei Qigong under Song Jingang's command. Although Yu Qigong is relatively black and not good-looking, he still exudes a majestic aura. A group of iron cavalry led by Qin Qiong hid behind the rocks, their swords drawn and their crossbows tense, and the tense atmosphere was like a tense bowstring. As a natural warrior, Yu Qigong suddenly felt a chill. His intuition was not good, but he had no time to withdraw. Strike. Suddenly. Yin Kaishan ordered. In an instant, the ambushes rose up with arrows like rain. Falling rocks and rolling trees, dividing the enemy into several sections. After a shower of arrows. Go ahead. Qin Qiong took the lead, and the Tang army emerged like a fierce tiger, instantly charging into the enemy camp. This sudden attack caught the enemy off guard, and some soldiers scattered and stampeded on each other. The Tang army's iron cavalry shuttled through the enemy like a raging wind and rain, with guns and spears flying, knife lights flashing, and blood gushing out. Steady. Don't panic. Steady. Yu Qigong roared loudly. Line up. Counter-attack. The elite soldiers under Wei Qigong followed him through countless battles and quickly responded to the orders of the main general. Reorganize the defensive line in formation. At this point, Yu Qigong saw a Tang army general with a towering figure, a dignified appearance, eyes shining on cold stars, and two curved eyebrows resembling painted paint rushing towards him. The newcomer is brave and invincible, and no one can resist it. He let out a loud shout and rode his horse to welcome him. Who are you? How dare you ambush this general? Qin Qiong, the commander-in-chief of the Tang Dynasty horse army. Qin Qiong immediately swung her sword horizontally. I believe you must be Wei Qijingde from the east of the mighty river. It turned out that it was Qin Shubao, who was riding on both sides of the Yellow River and using his trump card to attack 100 Dan and 8 counties in the 6 prefectures of Shaanxi province. I won't waste my trip if I can fight you today. Yu Qigong said, stabbing out his long spear in his hand. Heroes have been cherished since ancient times. But the two are in different camps, and can only face each other in battle. The two of them were on equal footing, unable to determine the winner for a moment, and a solemn atmosphere filled the battlefield. Almost at the same time, Yin Kaishan led the infantry to cover up. Brothers. New recruits are not cowards, let the enemy see the power of Tang Dynasty's new recruits. Today is the day to make achievements. Kill. Li Xian, dressed in silver armor and holding a Mo Dao, rushed over first. Directly shake off the other soldiers. Other new recruits, upon seeing this, were also unwilling to fall behind and bravely fought to kill them. I didn't misread this kid. Captain Yu on the side couldn't help but secretly admire the situation. The veterans saw the new recruits so brave and infected, and their morale surged. Amidst the shouting of killing, both the enemy and us engaged in close combat. Arrows howled, knives and guns intertwined, and a strong smell of blood permeated the battlefield. Battle upgrade. Li Xian infiltrated the enemy's formation. Today, I want to become a true Tang Dynasty elite. Shua. Hands up and swords down, an enemy attacking Li Xian was cut in half by Mo Dao. A stream of blood spurted out. Splash onto Li Xian's face. A strong smell of blood fills the nose. For the first time, Li Xian truly felt the smell of blood. A fit of nausea and almost nauseous. Looking at the shapeless corpse in front of him, his body involuntarily trembled a few times. After all, this is his first time killing an enemy. But he didn't have any extra time to be nervous or afraid. A new enemy came forward with a gunshot. War is cruel. On the battlefield, either you die or I live. Li Xian knew that in order to live, he must let the enemy die first. He avoided the opponent's gunhead and swung out a stranger's knife. Ah! Amidst the screams, another enemy fell to the ground. 3 enemies saw him easily kill 2 comrades either with guns or swords. Ding! Congratulations to the host. Successfully killed 2 ordinary soldiers and gained 100 combat points. Killing 2 ordinary soldiers earns 100 combat points, which means killing 1 ordinary soldier earns 50 combat points. Li Xian didn't have time to pay attention to the system's prompts and waved his sword to face the enemy. Mo Dao flipped over, carrying a strong blade wind. Instantly cut off the enemy's gun and fly the enemy's big sword. The 3 enemy soldiers were taken aback and immediately froze. I never dreamed that the opponent's strength was so great, and the Mo Dao was so powerful. On the battlefield, there should be no hesitation. The Mo Dao in Li Xian's hand was slashed diagonally, cutting through the bodies of 3 enemies who were stunned. Pwai! 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 The bodies of 3 enemies were cut in 2. Blood, splatter. There was another nauseating smell of blood that filled the nose. This time, Li Xian calmed down a lot. He only had one thought in his heart. To become stronger by killing enemies and to level up the battle. Congratulations to the host, successfully killing 2 ordinary soldiers and obtaining 100 combat points. Congratulations to the host, successfully killing a decapitate and gaining 100 combat points. The system prompt is coming again. Li Xian's killing of the enemy attracted more attention from the enemy and became their focus. An enemy infantry general roared and raised his sword to chop towards Li Xian. Li Xian waved his Mo Dao to confront his opponent. In the light of their swords, Li Xian displayed astonishing skills and strength. His own divine power made the Mo Dao dance like a stream of light. The knife technique is sharp and deadly, with each blade carrying infinite killing power. The enemy general couldn't help but change his color, but he still bravely clashed with Li Xian. Chang! 2 knives collide. Make a loud noise. Sparks splattered everywhere. Chapter 10. Mo Dao showcases might, quenched body double. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The enemy did not anticipate that Li Xian's power was astonishing. The big knife in my hand is missing a big cut and is about to break. His hands were trembling with pain and numbness. The tiger's mouth gradually cracked and blood oozed out. I almost couldn't stand steadily. Master battles allow for no loss. Li Xian seized the opportunity and swept across with a stranger's sword. The enemy general couldn't even scream in time and was nowhere to be found. Congratulations to the host, successfully killing an enemy colonel and gaining 1000 combat points when prompted by the system. Li Xian did not stop and continued to wield his sword to kill other enemies. Like a killing god. Wherever you go, whoever blocks will die. Congratulations to the host, successfully killed. The system keeps sending prompts in his mind. Enemies fell one by one under his knife. Transform into combat value. In the blink of an eye. 5 more enemies have fallen. 1 team leader and 4 ordinary soldiers. Seeing Li Xian so brave, the enemy was shocked, and our soldiers were also shocked. The new recruits were infected by Li Xian's bravery, and their morale surged, becoming more and more brave as they killed. Kill all the Tang army. The enemy army came to their senses. The battle between the two sides has heated up. In the shadow of swords and guns, Tang's soldiers shuttle through the battlefield, dodging enemy attacks while launching their own attacks. Their eyes remain steadfast, filled with murderous intent and determination. Exchange your life for my merit. Li Xian was full of murderous intent. Today, he is going to kill a lot. With a tremor in his hand, he continued to charge towards the enemy. Seeing his formidable enemy infantry, they all avoided his sharpness. Some people come to intercept, either their heads are moving or their bodies are split in half. Every moment of killing an enemy is filled with blood and cruelty. Li Xian's Mo Dao mercilessly killed the enemy's bodies, cutting them into pieces. Blood and flesh were flying everywhere, screams were incessant, and the battlefield was filled with a strong smell of iron and blood. Only the strong can survive on such a cruel battlefield. Stop him. There is a general shouting in the enemy's formation. With more and more enemies in front of him, Li Xian felt a tremendous pressure. He knew that if he couldn't quickly solve these enemies, his comrades would fall in this battle. He took a deep breath and felt his heart beating violently. Then, shouting loudly, they charged towards the enemy again. The Mo Dao danced, cutting through the air and cutting off the enemy's weapons and body. Li Xian's gaze was sharp like an eagle, locking in the flaws of every enemy. His body is as agile as a leopard, dodging every attack. In a short period of time, he turned into a killing machine. The Mo Dao kept waving, and every time it fell, an enemy would fall. He was covered in blood, but he felt his strength constantly growing. Congratulations to the host, the combat value has exceeded 10,000 points, and martial arts has been upgraded to the 2nd level of body quenching. With the system's reminder, Li Xian felt a surge of true qi in his body, and his internal strength surged. Suddenly, the body, which had been almost exhausted, instantly recovered as usual. Li Xian quickly understood that this was due to the upgrade of martial arts. Every time you upgrade, your strength will be restored. Indeed, it is in battle that one's own strength can rise faster. Li Xian suddenly burst out laughing. Full of arrogance and determination. A bloodthirsty gaze appeared in both eyes. It is intimidating and afraid to look directly at. His voice was deep and firm, full of intimidation. I want to become stronger. He shouted loudly. I want to become the most powerful warrior on this battlefield, let my name become your nightmare. You will be the stepping stone for me to enhance my strength and obtain military achievements. Li Xian raised his Mo Dao again and cut towards the enemy. The Mo Dao shone with a cold light in his hand, and every wave brought an unparalleled killing aura. The enemy in front of them felt an unprecedented fear, knowing that they had no chance of winning against such a Tang Dynasty elite. Li Xuanqing is the god of killing on this battlefield, and no one dares to block his path. The enemy infantry were in disarray. One after another retreated. Li Xian didn't stop and shot towards the enemy cavalry camp. Whoosh! 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 Suddenly, several hidden arrows shot one after another. Li Xian's eyes furrowed slightly, and he waved his Mo Dao. Mo Dao dances like a fan. The curled blade wind blows or shakes all the sharp arrows that come in. Da-da-da-da. At the same time, a sound of horse hooves quickly came from the right. A fast horse is like a shooting star, coming very quickly. A cavalry general attacked while Li Xuanga was blocking a sharp arrow. Cold light piercing out. The long spear pierced at Li Xian. Li Xian didn't have time to dodge and watched as the gun pierced him. Time flies. A figure rushed forward and blocked Li Xian's right side. Puff. Someone was stabbed with a long spear by the enemy. Ah! Make a painful scream. Li Xianding glanced and realized that it was Niu Dali who blocked the shot for him. I saw Niu Dali being stabbed in the right chest by the opponent. Although he was wearing iron armor, the opponent came with a fierce force, with the tip of the gun piercing through the armor and the tip of the gun sinking into Niu Dali's chest. The other party was shocked and quickly drew out the long gun. The cow fell to the ground with great force. For a moment, life and death are unknown. Li Xian's eyes were filled with determination and anger, and he must vigorously seek revenge for the cow. He leaped up, his sword slashing a cold light in the air and directly cutting towards the enemy cavalry leader. The opponent was an experienced veteran who immediately raised a steel shield to block Li Xian's knife. Li Xian's strength and skills instantly shattered the veteran's shield, but he also felt a huge reaction force on the Mo Dao, causing it to rebound. Shocked, my arms trembled a few times. Li Xian frowned, knowing that the veteran's strength was not inferior to that of Niu Dali. He quickly retreated, intending to readjust his posture, but found himself at the center of the enemy. Surrounding enemy forces rushed towards us. Li Xian took a deep breath and calmly observed the situation around him. He knew that this was just the beginning. You must remain calm and clear-headed in order to survive this battle. I saw a cavalry general on his right, an infantry general on his left, and the veteran general in front of him. The veteran threw away his shield and stared at himself with incredible eyes. Behind them were several enemy cavalry wielding spears and spears. Wait for the opportunity. Li Xian understood in his heart that as long as he showed a slight flaw, he would be killed by these enemies working together. After more than half a month of exercise. After the killing just now. He is no longer that cowardly scholar. But rather a god of killing that makes enemies tremble with fear. Li Xuanmu showed a murderous intent and swung his Mo Dao, first attacking the cavalry commander on the right side and cutting off the opponent's horse leg with his Mo Dao. At the moment when the horse fell to the ground, he rushed forward and slashed the throat of the infantry commander on the left side. Blood spray. In his breath, he had already knocked down an enemy cavalry commander and killed an enemy infantry colonel. The combat value data of the system continues to rise in a flurry.